My husband found out I inherited $8 million because he was looking for Christmas lights in our garage. I had hidden the paperwork inside an old KitchenAid mixer box 3 weeks earlier, and the second I heard the lid hit the concrete floor, I knew my marriage was over. Vanessa? Ethan's voice echoed through the garage at 9:14 on a freezing Thursday night in Naperville. I stood in the kitchen holding 2 grocery bags and felt every muscle in my body lock. He walked in slowly, carrying a thick white envelope in one hand. The other hand was shaking. I recognized the return address immediately. Hawthorne Private Trust. My Aunt Sophia's estate attorneys in Boston. Ethan looked pale. Why does this say you received $4,800,000 last year? The milk slipped from my fingers and hit the kitchen tile hard enough to burst open. Neither of us looked down. For a second, the only sound in the house was the refrigerator humming behind us. Then Ethan laughed once. Short. Confused. This has to be fake. I wish it had been. I set the grocery bags on the counter carefully. My mind was already moving ahead. The unopened mortgage notice on the table. The overdue electric bill. Ethan's second warehouse shift starting at 6 every morning. None of those things were accidents anymore. Ethan stepped closer. Vanessa. He stared directly at me now. Tell me this is fake. I looked at the envelope again. August 14th, distribution confirmation. The exact date the money hit my account 18 months earlier. The same week Ethan sold his father's Mustang because we were falling behind. My throat tightened. It is real, I said quietly. Ethan blinked twice. Real? His voice cracked on the word. You inherited millions? I nodded once. He waited for the rest. When nothing came, his expression changed. Not anger yet. Worse. Confusion. Like he had suddenly walked into the wrong house. When were you planning to tell me? He asked. I could not answer immediately because the truth sounded ugly even inside my own head. I never planned to tell him. Not fully. Not after the first few months. Not after I realized what money changed. Ethan dropped the envelope onto the counter. We refinanced this house in March. His breathing became uneven. I sold my car. Another step toward me. You watched me pick up night shifts. I folded my arms tightly. The inheritance was legally mine. The second the words left my mouth, I saw something collapse behind his eyes. He stared at me for several long seconds. Then he looked around the kitchen like he was seeing everything differently. The cracked cabinet handles. The cheap coffee maker. The stack of coupons beside the microwave. Jesus Christ, he whispered. You let me believe we were drowning. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but my phone buzzed against the counter before I could speak. Ethan glanced down automatically. So did I. The message preview lit up the dark kitchen. Dinner tomorrow? Same place as last time? I moved too fast. I grabbed the phone immediately, but Ethan had already seen enough. His face changed again. This time the confusion disappeared completely. Who is Daniel? He asked quietly. Outside, snow hit the windows in soft bursts. Inside, the kitchen suddenly felt too small to breathe in. I should have lied right there. Maybe things would have unfolded differently. But exhaustion hit me all at once. 18 months of hiding accounts. Fake budgeting conversations. Pretending to compare grocery prices while investment statements sat unread in my private mailbox downtown. I leaned against the counter. It is not what you think. Ethan actually smiled at that. Not because he believed me. Because he did not. That sentence, he said softly, is never followed by anything good. He picked up the envelope again and flipped through the documents. I watched his eyes scan the pages. Distribution schedules. Trust transfers. Account summaries. Then he stopped at page 4. His jaw tightened. Recurring transfers? He asked. My pulse jumped instantly. He looked up slowly. What account is Blackwater Holdings? I felt cold all over. He should not have seen that page. I took a step forward, but Ethan moved the papers away from me. Vanessa, he said carefully, why were you sending $20,000 every month to a company I have never heard of? The garage door rattled from the wind outside. Somewhere upstairs, Ava's television was still running. Normal sounds. Ordinary sounds. But nothing inside that kitchen felt normal anymore. Because Ethan had finally found the first thread. And if he kept pulling, the rest of my life was about to come apart. I reached for the papers again, slower this time. Blackwater Holdings is just an investment account, I said. Ethan did not move. He kept the envelope against his chest like it was evidence. Then why did you never mention it? Before I could answer, Ava appeared at the bottom of the stairs in flannel pants and a University of Illinois hoodie. Why are you both yelling? She asked. We had not been yelling. That was the worst part. The house was so tense that even quiet voices sounded dangerous. Ethan turned the papers face down on the counter. Go back upstairs, honey. Ava looked at me first, not him. That tiny choice cut deeper than I expected. Mom, is this about the city apartment? Ethan's head snapped toward her. My stomach dropped. What apartment? He asked. Ava's face went blank. She realized too late that she had said something she was not supposed to say. I forced a small laugh. She means the corporate rental I used during client projects. Ethan's eyes stayed on our daughter. Ava. His voice softened. What city apartment? She swallowed. I only saw it once. Mom said not to tell you because you would think it was a waste of money. There it was. A childish explanation I had given months earlier, now dragged into the light with the blunt honesty only a 19-year-old could deliver. Ethan looked back at me, and for the first time that night, I felt anger rise in myself instead of fear. You are making this bigger than it is, I said. I needed space for work. He nodded slowly. Space from what? I looked toward the sink. From everything. That answer seemed to hurt him more than a lie would have. Ava stepped back, whispering that she was going upstairs. Ethan waited until her bedroom door closed. Then he picked up his phone. What are you doing? I asked. Checking the EasyPass account. I walked around the island fast. Ethan, stop. He looked at me. Why? One word. Clean. Sharp. I had no answer that did not sound like guilt. He logged in anyway. The screen loaded, and I watched his thumb stop moving. There were trips into downtown Chicago almost every Friday night. Exit times. Return times. Months of them. Marketing conferences, he said. I felt my face heat. Some were client dinners. At midnight? He turned the phone so I could see what he saw. And Sundays at 6 in the morning? The false version of my life was cracking in order. First the money. Then the apartment. Then the schedule. Each fact made the next lie easier to believe. Or harder not to believe. Ethan grabbed his coat from the chair. Where are you going? I asked. To see it. My chest tightened. You do not even know where it is. He held up the trust document. Blackwater Holdings lists a mailing address. I had forgotten that page. A stupid clerical detail. One line under registered assets. Unit 2406, West Randolph Street. I followed him into the garage barefoot, stepping on cold concrete. It is late. He opened the driver's door of his truck. You should have thought about timing before hiding an entire apartment. I stood beside the truck as snow blew under the door. Ethan, please. He paused then. For 1 second, I thought he might stay. Then his face hardened. Did you ever plan to tell me the truth? I said nothing. He nodded once, got in, and backed out into the snow. I stood in the garage long after the taillights disappeared. Then my phone buzzed again. Daniel. Are you okay? You stopped responding. I stared at his name until the screen went black. The sensible thing would have been to delete the thread. Instead, I called him. He answered on the second ring. Vanessa? His voice was low, careful. Ethan found the trust papers, I said. Silence. Then, how much does he know? Not are you okay? Not what happened. How much does he know? That was the first time Daniel sounded less like an escape and more like another man protecting himself. I walked back into the kitchen and locked the back door with shaking hands. He knows about the apartment. Daniel exhaled. Do not let him into the unit. My skin went cold. Why? Because some of my files are there. I closed my eyes. Of course. Nothing stayed separate forever. Not money. Not lies. Not men who promised they did not need anything from you. What files? I asked. Business paperwork. Nothing illegal. That word landed wrong. Illegal. I had not said it. Ethan would be halfway to the city by then, driving through slick roads with betrayal sitting beside him like a passenger. I pictured him at the front desk, showing his license, asking for me. The doorman knew me. He also knew Daniel. My phone buzzed again while Daniel was still talking. A text from Ethan. I am in the lobby. They know you here. 4 words. Then another message arrived. They also know him. I stopped breathing. Daniel said my name twice before I hung up. I could see the whole scene without being there. Ethan in his work jacket, salt on his boots, standing under the chandelier of a building I had told him I never needed. The concierge looking uncomfortable. Maybe even pitying him. That image did something to me. It did not make me confess. It made me defensive. I grabbed my keys, put on boots without socks, and drove toward Chicago faster than I should have. The highway was streaked with slush. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles hurt. I kept telling myself I was going to control the damage. That was the phrase I used. Damage. Not marriage. Not husband. Damage. By the time I reached West Randolph, Ethan was standing outside the building beneath the awning. His shoulders were hunched against the cold. In his hand was a visitor badge. He looked smaller than he had in our kitchen. Older too. I parked illegally at the curb and stepped out. Ethan. He turned. His eyes were red, but his voice was steady. The doorman asked if I was here to fix the heating. I felt the blood drain from my face. What? He thought I was maintenance. He held up the badge with a bitter smile. Apparently I did not look like someone who belonged in my wife's secret building. I had no defense for that. Not one that mattered. He walked closer, snow melting on his hair. I spent 2 winters patching our furnace because you said we could not afford a new one. His voice dropped. And you had a rooftop pool. The reversal hit me hard because it was true in the cruelest possible way. I had not meant to humiliate him. But intention did not change the picture. He stepped around me toward his truck. Ethan, wait. He stopped without turning. Is Daniel the reason you hid the money? I wanted to say yes. A simple answer. A cleaner betrayal. But the truth was worse. No, I whispered. He turned back slowly. I forced myself to meet his eyes. The money came first. For a moment, the street noise seemed to vanish. Ethan stared at me like I had finally handed him the knife and admitted how long I had been holding it. Then he said, "That is what I was afraid of." I followed Ethan's truck out of downtown, but he did not drive home. That was my first new fear. He turned onto the expressway, past the exit toward Naperville, and kept going west with his phone mounted on the dashboard. I called him twice. He declined both times. Then a message came through from Ava. Dad just called me. He asked when I first saw the apartment. What do I say? I pulled onto the shoulder so fast a horn blared behind me. Snow slapped against the windshield. My hand shook over the screen. I typed, "Tell him the truth." Then I deleted it. I typed, "Do not get involved." I deleted that too. Finally I wrote, "I will explain everything when I get home." Ava replied instantly. That is what you always say. I sat there staring at those 6 words while traffic hissed past me. That message hurt more than Ethan's questions because it came from my daughter, and she was right. I had turned explanations into delays. Delays into habits. Habits into walls. My phone rang before I could pull back onto the road. Unknown number. I answered because fear makes you answer everything. Mrs. Cole, a woman said. This is Marissa at Halden Security. Your husband is at the private mailbox center asking whether he can access Box 118. My stomach dropped. Box 118 was not downtown. It was in Oak Brook. It was where I received every statement Ethan was never supposed to see. He is not authorized, I said too quickly. Do not give him anything. Marissa paused. He has your joint tax return with the trust distribution referenced on it. I closed my eyes. That was the false lead I had missed. Ethan was not chasing Daniel. He was chasing paper. Just ask him to wait, I said. I am on my way. I turned the car around hard enough that my tires slid. By the time I reached the mailbox center, Ethan was standing inside under bright fluorescent lights, still wearing his work jacket, holding a cardboard storage box. Marissa stood behind the counter with the expression of someone who wished she had called in sick. You emptied it? I asked. Ethan looked at the box, then at me. You paid $600 a year to receive mail 10 miles from our house. He lifted one envelope from the top. That felt important. I stepped closer. Those are private. So was our marriage, apparently. He set the box on a packing table and began opening envelopes with a small metal letter opener Marissa had given him. Not angry. Not frantic. Methodical. That scared me more. First came brokerage statements. Then property tax notices. Then the insurance policy for the condo. Each envelope landed on the table like another small verdict. I watched him open a thick cream envelope from Blackwater Holdings and felt the room tilt. Do not open that one, I said. He stopped. Not because he obeyed me. Because my voice had betrayed me. He slid out the documents slowly. His eyes moved left to right. Then he frowned. This is not an investment account. I looked away. Vanessa. He turned the first page toward me. It is an LLC. He flipped another page. And you formed it 3 months after the inheritance. Another flip. Daniel Mercer is listed as managing consultant. Marissa quietly disappeared into the back room. Ethan noticed. So did I. The world had become too embarrassing for strangers to witness. He helped me structure things, I said. That is all. Ethan nodded, almost politely. Structure what? He read further. Luxury rental lease. Asset management fees. Consulting retainer. He tapped one line with his finger. $9,000 a month to Daniel Mercer. I felt cornered, and when I feel cornered, I get colder. It is not a virtue. It is just true. He understood the financial side better than you did. Ethan looked up. That one landed exactly where I had thrown it. For 3 seconds, I saw pain turn into something sharper. I see, he said. He placed the document flat on the table. So while I was working 12-hour shifts, you were paying him more every month than I brought home. I said nothing. He pulled out another envelope, this one from a jewelry insurer. I thought it would be about the bracelet. That would have been bad, but survivable. Instead, he unfolded an appraisal form for a diamond tennis necklace I had never worn at home. Purchase date, February 11th. 2 days before Ethan's birthday. He stared at the number. $38,000. You told me we could not afford dinner that weekend, he said. I remembered the night clearly. Ethan had suggested a steakhouse in town, nothing extravagant, just a place with white tablecloths where we used to go before life became bills and schedules. I told him we should be responsible. I said maybe next year. Then Daniel and I flew to Miami the following morning for what I called a strategy meeting. Ethan opened the next envelope before I could speak. Airline receipts. 2 first-class tickets. Chicago to Miami. My name and Daniel's. Hotel invoice. 3 nights. Ocean view suite. I reached for the paper, but Ethan stepped back. Was this before or after you told me to postpone my knee surgery? His voice stayed low, and that made every word worse. Ethan, the surgery was not urgent. I was limping to work. You said you could manage. Because I thought we were broke. He grabbed the box and carried it outside into the freezing parking lot. I followed him, my coat open, snow catching in my hair. Where are you taking that? Home. You cannot just take my financial records. He stopped beside his truck and turned around. Our taxes have my signature on them. Our mortgage has my signature on it. Our credit card has my name on it. You made me part of your lies when you let me sign documents that were based on a fake version of our finances. I had no quick answer for that because cause and effect were finally standing in front of me. I had hidden the inheritance, so he refinanced. I had hidden the condo, so he trusted my absences. I had hidden Daniel, so every ordinary delay now looked like betrayal. Then my phone buzzed again. Daniel. Do not let him take the Blackwater files. I looked down for half a second too long. Ethan saw my face. Let me guess, he said. Daniel has instructions. I locked the screen. He is worried you will misunderstand. Ethan gave a short laugh. I am starting to understand perfectly. He opened his truck door, but before he got in, another car pulled into the lot. A silver Lexus. Daniel stepped out wearing a wool coat and no hat, like he had walked out of a hotel lobby instead of into a snowstorm. For one insane second, I felt relief. Then I saw Ethan's expression and realized Daniel's arrival was not rescue. It was gasoline. Daniel raised both hands calmly. Ethan, I think we should talk like adults. Ethan stared at him. You knew my name? Daniel hesitated. That was all the answer Ethan needed. Of course you did, Ethan said. You knew my wife. My money. My house. My schedule. Daniel looked at me, annoyed now, not tender. Vanessa, tell him this is business. I waited for the words to come. They did not. Because even I could hear how small that sounded beside the box in Ethan's arms. Ethan opened the passenger door and dropped the records inside. Here is the funny thing, he said, looking at Daniel now. I came here thinking you were the problem. He shut the door. But you were just the receipt. Daniel's face hardened. Mine went cold. Ethan walked around to the driver's side. The problem, he said, started long before you. Then he drove away with the evidence, leaving me in the parking lot between the man I betrayed and the man who had helped me do it. I did not chase Ethan after Daniel arrived. That was what I told myself later. I was being strategic. I was preventing a scene. I was choosing control. The truth was uglier. I stood in that parking lot because, for the first time in 18 months, I did not know which lie to protect first. Daniel walked toward me with snow collecting on the shoulders of his coat. You should not have let him take that box. I turned on him so quickly he stopped. You showed up here. Because you panicked. Because my husband found everything. Daniel glanced toward the road where Ethan's truck had disappeared. Not everything. That should have comforted me. Instead, it made my stomach tighten. What does that mean? He looked past me at the mailbox center windows. It means you need to know exactly what he has before you react. 10 minutes later, I sat in my car outside the lot, watching Daniel drive away in the Lexus while my phone rested face up on the passenger seat. I expected him to call again. He did not. That silence changed the shape of the night. I had assumed Daniel would protect me. But the moment Ethan had physical proof, Daniel became careful. Distance was his first legal move. I opened my banking app with numb fingers. Blackwater Holdings. Recent activity. 1 pending wire transfer. $50,000. Scheduled by Daniel at 8:42 p.m. that night. My breath caught. He had moved money while Ethan and I were still fighting in the kitchen. I took a screenshot. Then another. For the first time, I was not investigating Ethan. I was investigating the man I thought had helped me build my escape. I drove home through back roads because I needed time before facing Ethan. Every traffic light felt staged. Every red brake light ahead of me looked like a warning. When I pulled into our driveway, his truck was there, but the garage door was closed. He never closed it before I got home. Small detail. Clear message. Inside, the house was quiet except for the dishwasher running. Ethan sat at the dining table with the box open in front of him, documents sorted into neat piles. Trust. Condo. Daniel. Credit cards. Taxes. He had labeled them with yellow sticky notes from my own junk drawer. That hurt in a ridiculous way. You organized my life fast, I said. He did not look up. It was already organized. Just not with me in it. I took off my coat and tried a different approach. Softer. Ethan, I know how this looks. He slid one paper across the table without touching my hand. It was a joint credit card statement. $480 at a restaurant in River North. The same night I told him I was visiting Ava on campus. Do you? He asked. I looked at the date and felt the room shift again. That dinner had not been with Daniel. It had been with a divorce attorney. A woman named Claire Benton. I had never hired her, only asked questions. But I could already see Ethan's assumption forming. A fair dinner. Another lie. That was not what you think, I said. He leaned back. You keep saying that. I sat across from him. I met an attorney. His eyes sharpened. Not relief. New injury. You were planning divorce? I hesitated 1 second too long. I was asking what my options were. He laughed quietly, but there was no humor in it. While I was asking whether we could afford a new water heater. Cause and effect again. Every private option I had created had required a public sacrifice from him. I wanted to explain that I felt trapped before the money. That I felt invisible. That the inheritance did not create my resentment, only gave it oxygen. But those words sounded cruel beside the papers. So I did something worse. I tested him. What are you going to do with all this? Ethan looked down at the piles. Tomorrow morning, I am calling an attorney. There it was. A clean line. A real threat. My chest tightened, but my voice stayed level. And Ava? He finally looked at me. Do not use her as a shield. The reversal hit hard because I had been about to do exactly that. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Ava was listening. We both heard it. Neither of us called her down. Ethan gathered the Daniel pile and put it into a folder. I am sleeping in the guest room. He stood, and that movement scared me more than any argument. Arguments still meant heat. The guest room meant separation. After he went upstairs, I opened my laptop at the kitchen island and searched Daniel's name with Blackwater Holdings. I expected business filings. I found them. Then I found something else. A civil lawsuit in Cook County from 6 years earlier. Breach of fiduciary duty. Settled privately. My mouth went dry. The plaintiff was a widow. The company name was different, but Daniel's role was identical. Managing consultant. I clicked through the public docket, each line loading slowly. Asset transfers. Misrepresentation. Undisclosed fees. I had thought Daniel was proof that I was finally in control. Now the record on my screen suggested I had been studied, managed, and quietly harvested. My phone buzzed at 12:17 a.m. Daniel again. Delete any texts about Blackwater. Do not discuss wires. I stared at the message. Then I did the opposite. I forwarded it to my private email. I screenshotted it. I saved it to the cloud. My hands were shaking, but this time from something different. Not fear of being exposed. Fear that I had exposed myself to the wrong person first. I walked to the hallway and paused outside the guest room. Light showed under the door. Ethan was awake. I raised my hand to knock, then lowered it. If I told him about Daniel's wire, he would think I was only confessing because I got caught. If I stayed silent, Daniel could move more money before morning. My mind split down the middle. Wife. Liar. Victim. Villain. Each word felt partly true and completely insufficient. So I chose action because action was easier than honesty. I went back downstairs, opened the banking portal, and froze Blackwater's outgoing transfers using the emergency fraud link. The screen asked for a reason. I typed, unauthorized activity by managing consultant. My finger hovered over submit. One click would protect the money. It would also create a record Ethan's attorney could find. I clicked anyway. Confirmation number appeared at 12:31 a.m. I printed it immediately. The printer whirred loudly in the dark kitchen, and I winced, listening for movement upstairs. None came. Then a new email arrived from Hawthorne Private Trust. Subject, urgent compliance review. My stomach dropped. The trust company had flagged the same wire. They requested a call at 9 a.m. With me and any spouse listed on shared tax filings. Ethan. Of course. Because my secrecy had not kept him separate. It had dragged him into the paper trail. I stood in the kitchen holding the printed confirmation while the house slept around me. For 18 months, I had believed money gave me privacy. That night, I understood what it actually gave me. Evidence. At 8:47 the next morning, Ethan came downstairs wearing yesterday's work shirt and carrying the Daniel folder under his arm. He looked like he had not slept at all. I was already at the kitchen table with my laptop open, 2 mugs of coffee untouched between us, and the printed fraud confirmation placed exactly in the center. Before you call your attorney, I said, you need to see something. He stopped at the doorway. His eyes dropped to the paper. Now you want to share documents? I deserved that. I slid the confirmation toward him anyway. Daniel tried to move $50,000 last night. Ethan did not sit. He read the page standing up, jaw tight, expression guarded. Convenient, he said. Very convenient timing. I felt the sting because I had expected suspicion, but expectation did not make it easier. I froze it. After he helped you hide everything. Yes. The word hung there, plain and ugly. I did not soften it. Ethan looked at me then, and for one brief second I saw the old version of him, the man who used to study my face before deciding whether to be angry or worried. Then his phone rang. Hawthorne Private Trust. He placed it on speaker without asking me. A woman introduced herself as Margaret Vale, Senior Compliance Officer, and her voice was so calm it made the whole kitchen feel like a courtroom. Mrs. Cole, Mr. Cole, We have detected irregular activity connected to the Blackwater Holdings account and related trust distributions. Ethan's eyes stayed on mine. Related how? He asked. There was a pause on the line. Mr. Cole, some of the transfers appear to have been supported by financial disclosures listing household obligations, including mortgage pressure and medical deferments. I felt the blood leave my face. Ethan leaned closer to the phone. Medical deferments? Margaret continued, there are notes attached to the investment strategy file stating that liquidity needed to remain outside marital visibility due to pending divorce exposure and spouse instability. The words landed like blows, but the worst part was that they sounded official. Cold. Documented. Ethan turned slowly toward me. Spouse instability? I shook my head. I never said that. His face hardened. You expect me to believe Daniel invented it? I opened my mouth, then closed it. Because the answer was not simple. I had complained to Daniel. I had said Ethan was emotional about money. I had said he panicked over bills. I had said I needed breathing room. But spouse instability was not my phrase. Pending divorce exposure was not my phrase. Margaret asked if we could come to the trust office in Chicago by 11 o'clock. Ethan said yes before I did. Then he ended the call and picked up his keys. I am driving separately, he said. Ethan. He turned at the front door. You froze one wire, Vanessa. That does not erase 18 months. The door shut softly behind him, and somehow that hurt more than if he had slammed it. I sat alone for 3 minutes, staring at the coffee going cold. Then Ava came downstairs. Her eyes were swollen. She held her phone in one hand. Mom, she said, why did Dad send me screenshots? My stomach tightened. What screenshots? She turned the phone around. A picture of the Miami hotel invoice. The necklace appraisal. The condo insurance. I felt anger flash through me at Ethan, then shame followed immediately because Ava was not upset about being told. She was upset because the truth existed. I did not want you in the middle, I said. Her mouth trembled. You put me there when you made me keep the apartment secret. That reversed everything inside me. I had told myself I protected Ava from adult problems. But I had used her innocence as cover. I reached for her hand. She stepped back. Did you hide money because of Dad, or because of him? She asked. I did not ask who she meant. At first, because of myself, I said. Then because I did not know how to stop. Ava wiped her cheek with her sleeve. That is not an answer. It is the only honest one I have. She nodded once, like honesty had arrived too late to be useful, and went back upstairs. By 10:52, I was sitting in a glass conference room on the 23rd floor of Hawthorne Private Trust, across from Ethan, beside a chair left empty for Daniel. He was late. That should have surprised me. It did not. Margaret Vale entered with 2 binders and a tablet. She greeted Ethan first. Another small humiliation I had earned. Mr. Mercer will not be joining, she said. His counsel contacted us this morning. Counsel. The word made my hands go cold. Ethan leaned back. Of course he has counsel. Margaret opened the first binder. Mrs. Cole, I need to ask whether you authorized Mr. Mercer to classify portions of trust income as consulting-controlled liquidity. I stared at her. He said it was standard asset protection. Did he explain that the classification allowed management fees to be deducted before personal distribution? No. Ethan looked at me sharply. Not forgiving. But listening. Margaret slid a document toward me. My signature was at the bottom. I recognized it. Daniel had sent it while I was at the condo, saying it was routine. I had signed on my phone between meetings. I never read page 2. Margaret tapped a paragraph. This granted Blackwater temporary discretionary control over certain outgoing funds. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. Temporary? she nodded. Renewable every 6 months. It renewed twice. Ethan's voice changed. How much did he take? Margaret turned one page. Direct fees, retainers, reimbursements, and related pass-through payments total approximately $682,000. The room blurred for a second. I gripped the edge of the table. Ethan stared at the number. Then at me. You hid millions from me, he said slowly, and he was stealing from you? I wanted to reject the word stealing. It sounded too humiliating. Too simple. But the documents were right there. Layer after layer. My secrecy had made me feel powerful. It had also made me easy to isolate. Margaret slid another page forward. There is more. I almost laughed because I could not imagine more. She showed us a memo Daniel had uploaded 9 months earlier. In it, he described Ethan as financially dependent, emotionally reactive, and likely to pursue marital claims if informed of the inheritance. I read the paragraph twice. Then I saw a note attached beneath it. Recommended strategy: encourage marital separation before disclosure. Ethan went still. Encourage, he said. Margaret looked uncomfortable. That language is his. I remembered Daniel's little comments. You deserve privacy. Ethan will never understand wealth. You need a place in the city to think clearly. Separate finances are healthy. Each sentence had felt supportive at the time. Now they lined up like markers on a road I had not realized I was walking. The twist was not that Daniel had manipulated me instead of loving me. The twist was that he had used my resentment as the door, and I had opened it for him. Ethan stood abruptly and walked to the window. For a moment, he said nothing. Chicago spread below us, bright and sharp under winter sunlight. Finally he turned back. I thought you became cruel because you were rich. His voice was quiet. Now I think you became rich, got scared, and let a stranger teach you how to be cruel. That should have made me defensive. Instead, it emptied me. Because somewhere inside that sentence was the first version of the truth that explained me without excusing me. Margaret closed the binder. There is a compliance hold on all Blackwater-linked movement. We recommend both of you retain independent counsel immediately. Both of you. Not me alone. Not Daniel alone. Both. Because I had tied Ethan to a machine he never knew existed. As we left the conference room, Ethan did not wait for me at the elevator. But he did press the button twice, holding the doors open just long enough for me to step inside. It was a small mercy. Almost nothing. After everything I had done, almost nothing felt enormous. In the mirrored elevator wall, we stood side by side like strangers dressed for the same funeral. My phone buzzed. Daniel again. Do not talk to Ethan without me. I looked at the screen, then turned it so Ethan could see. For the first time since the garage, I did not hide it. Ethan read the message. His expression did not soften. But his voice was steady. Then maybe we should talk before he gets another chance. For almost 4 full minutes after we left Hawthorne, Ethan and I sat in his truck without speaking. He had not invited me in. He had only unlocked the passenger door and said, "Get in before he calls again." That was the closest thing to trust he could offer, and I took it. Chicago traffic moved slowly around us. Horns. Slush. A delivery cyclist cutting between cars. Ordinary life kept happening while mine narrowed to the phone in my lap. Daniel called once. Then twice. Ethan watched the second call light up the screen. Answer it, he said. My stomach tightened. On speaker? No, he said. Let him think I am not here. That was the first time Ethan and I had acted like a team in months, and the irony was so sharp I almost laughed. I answered on the third ring. Daniel's voice came fast. Vanessa, where are you? I looked at Ethan. He gave one small nod. In my car, I lied. Leaving Hawthorne. Daniel exhaled hard. Good. Listen carefully. Do not sign anything. Do not give Ethan access to any account. He is going to use this against you. Ethan's jaw flexed, but he stayed silent. I forced my voice to shake just enough. Margaret said you took $682,000. A pause. Tiny. Fatal. That is not accurate. Then explain it. Fees. Reimbursements. Strategy work. You knew this. I did not know about the discretionary control. His tone changed. Less warm. More clipped. You signed the documents, Vanessa. Ethan closed his eyes for 1 second, like the words had physically hit him. Because he knew that sentence. I had used a version of it on him for years. You agreed. You signed. You said it was fine. Daniel continued, what matters now is keeping your husband away from the trust. If he finds the separation memo, he will twist it. My hand went cold around the phone. Ethan's eyes opened. What separation memo? I asked. Daniel hesitated again. The one you requested. I did not request a memo. You told me you wanted a plan. My heart started pounding. A financial plan. A clean exit is a financial plan. Ethan looked out the windshield, but I saw his reflection in the glass. Pain first. Then fury. Quiet fury. Daniel lowered his voice. Meet me at the condo in 30 minutes. Bring your laptop and the old phone. The old phone. I had not thought about it in months. A second device Daniel convinced me to use for financial privacy. I had kept it in the condo desk. Ethan turned toward me slowly. What old phone? I did not answer Daniel. I ended the call. The truck filled with a silence so thick it felt solid. Then Ethan started the engine. We are going to the condo. He might be there. Good. His voice was calm. Too calm. Then he can explain it to both of us. The ride to West Randolph felt shorter than it should have. Maybe because every traffic light pulled another memory loose. Daniel handing me the phone in a hotel lobby. Daniel telling me couples with money needed boundaries. Daniel saying Ethan's pride would turn dangerous if he knew too much too soon. At the time, I had heard concern. Now I heard positioning. We parked 2 blocks away and entered through the side door because I still had the access code. Ethan noticed. Of course he did. You have codes to this place, he said, but not one honest sentence for me. I deserved that too. Upstairs, Unit 2406 smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and expensive candles. It looked untouched. Too perfect. White sofa. Glass coffee table. City view. The kind of place I had once mistaken for freedom. Ethan stood in the living room and took it all in without moving. I patched drywall in our hallway last month, he said quietly. You told me hiring someone was irresponsible. I walked to the desk before I could break under that sentence. The drawer was locked. I took the small brass key from beneath the ceramic planter, another detail Ethan watched me reveal. Inside was the old phone, a stack of Daniel's business cards, and a folder labeled VC Transition. I had never seen that folder before. Ethan came beside me. Open it. My fingers felt numb as I lifted the flap. The first page was a timeline. Not legal. Not official. Personal. January, reinforce separate banking. March, encourage refinance to increase household dependency. April, recommend sale of non-essential vehicle. May, introduce downtown workspace. June, emotional distance likely increases subject compliance. Subject. Not Vanessa. Subject. The room tilted. Ethan took the page from me, read it once, then again. He studied us, he said. His voice was barely above a whisper. I covered my mouth with one hand. The next pages were worse. Notes from conversations I barely remembered. Ethan is anxious about mortgage. Ethan postponing surgery. Ava can be used as reason for delayed disclosure. I pulled the page away like it burned me. No, Ethan looked at me. Did you tell him about Ava? Not like this. Did you tell him enough? That broke something open in me. Because yes. I had. In pieces. In complaints. In tired little confessions over wine and lunch and late-night messages. I had handed Daniel the map to my family and called it emotional support. Then the front door beeped. Once. Twice. Someone entering the code. Ethan stepped in front of me automatically, then seemed to realize what he had done. Protection by reflex. Even after everything. Daniel walked in wearing the same wool coat from the parking lot. He stopped when he saw Ethan holding the transition folder. For the first time since I had known him, Daniel looked truly surprised. You should not be here, he said. Ethan held up the folder. Seems like you expected everyone everywhere except where the truth was. Daniel's face hardened. This is private business material. I stepped out from behind Ethan. You called me subject. Daniel looked at me then, and the mask slipped just enough. Do not be dramatic. Those 4 words landed with more force than any confession. Not because they were loud. Because they were familiar. I had said them to Ethan when he worried about bills. I had said them to Ava when she questioned the apartment. Daniel had not created every cruelty in me. He had recognized it, fed it, and profited from it. Ethan walked to the coffee table and laid out the timeline page. Did you encourage her to hide the inheritance? Daniel smiled thinly. I advised asset protection. Did you take $682,000? I was compensated. Did you push her toward divorce before I knew the money existed? Daniel looked at me instead of him. Vanessa was unhappy long before I arrived. That was the cruelest true thing in the room. I hated him for saying it. I hated myself more because I could not deny it. Ethan turned to me. Is that true? The answer changed everything, because this time I could not use Daniel as the whole villain. I gripped the edge of the desk. Yes, I said. Ethan's face went still. But I was too cowardly to say it when we were poor, I continued. And when I had money, I told myself hiding it was independence. Then I told myself the apartment was space. Then I told myself Daniel was helping me. Every step made the next lie easier. My voice cracked, but I kept going. I hurt you before he stole from me. Daniel scoffed softly. This is not the moment for emotional theater. Ethan moved so fast Daniel took a step back, not from violence, but from the sudden force in his voice. Do not speak to her. The room froze. Even I froze. Ethan pointed at the folder. You used my wife's resentment to drain her. She used my trust to hide from me. And I used denial because it was easier than admitting my marriage had gone cold years ago. His voice shook on the last part. That was the breakdown. Not screaming. Not collapse. The truth finally becoming too heavy for all 3 of us to hold separately. Daniel recovered first. You cannot prove coercion. I picked up the old phone, turned it on, and watched dozens of messages reload. Daniel's instructions. His reminders. His warnings not to tell Ethan. His notes about timing disclosures after refinance papers. I held it out to Ethan, then looked at Daniel. Maybe not coercion, I said. But we can prove intent. Daniel's expression changed. Small. Controlled. Afraid. Ethan took the phone from me carefully, like it was fragile and dangerous. Then my personal phone rang. Margaret Vale again. I answered on speaker. Mrs. Cole, she said, we found one more irregularity. A life insurance policy inquiry was submitted through Blackwater using Mr. Cole's personal information. Ethan's eyes locked on mine. I shook my head immediately. I did not do that. Daniel reached for the door. Ethan saw him. Going somewhere? Daniel stopped. Margaret continued, the inquiry was never finalized, but the request originated from Mr. Mercer's office. The silence after that was the loudest thing I had ever heard. Suddenly the inheritance was not just hidden money. The affair was not the center. The condo was not the deepest betrayal. Daniel had been building a financial exit around my husband's life, my daughter's trust, and my cowardice. And I had invited him in. Ethan looked at me with devastation so complete it almost looked calm. Vanessa, he said, tell me right now. Is there anything else with my name on it? I thought of every form I had skimmed. Every digital signature. Every document Daniel said was routine. For the first time, I did not protect myself with certainty. I gave Ethan the only honest answer left. I do not know. Daniel left the condo 20 minutes later with his attorney on speakerphone and his confidence cracked straight down the middle. He tried to sound controlled while he packed his laptop into a leather bag, but I noticed his hands trembling when he zipped it closed. Ethan said almost nothing during those final minutes. That frightened Daniel more than yelling would have. Before leaving, Daniel stopped near the doorway and looked directly at me. You are making a mistake by turning on me. I stared back at him across the spotless white living room that had once felt sophisticated and private. Now it looked staged. Cold. Like a furniture showroom pretending to be a life. No, I said quietly. My mistake was thinking you were helping me escape consequences instead of helping me create them. Daniel opened his mouth again, probably ready with another polished explanation, but Ethan stepped forward just enough to block his line of sight to me. Get out. Daniel left after that. No dramatic slam. No final threat. Just the soft click of the condo door closing behind him. The silence afterward felt strange. Empty in a different way than before. Ethan stood near the windows overlooking the river while snow drifted slowly between the buildings outside. I watched his reflection in the glass more than I watched him directly. He looked exhausted. Older than 52. I really thought you were the villain tonight, he said finally. I swallowed hard. I still might be. He shook his head once. Villains do not usually look this ashamed. That should have comforted me, but it did not. Shame was not redemption. It was only proof that the damage had finally become impossible to avoid. Ethan walked back to the desk and picked up the transition folder again. Do you know what the worst part is? He asked. I thought he meant Daniel. The money. The affair. Instead, he held up one page from the timeline. June. Emotional distance likely increases subject compliance. His voice roughened slightly. I remember that month. I felt my chest tighten instantly because I remembered it too. Ethan had taken me to a small Italian restaurant near our neighborhood after my birthday. Nothing extravagant. Candles and red glass holders. Cheap wine. Snow melting outside the windows. He had reached across the table and asked me if I was happy. At the time, I told myself his question annoyed me because it came too late. But that was not fully true. The truth was that I panicked because I did not know how to answer honestly anymore. You cried in the parking lot that night, Ethan said quietly. I thought it meant we still had a chance. My throat burned. I looked down at my hands because I could not survive seeing his face while hearing that. I did not know what I wanted, I whispered. That is not the same as wanting to hurt you. Ethan nodded slowly. I believe that now. The emotional reversal hit harder than anger ever could have. Because forgiveness was not what I expected. And somehow partial understanding felt worse than hatred. Hatred would have simplified me. We left the condo together just after sunset. Neither of us touched the wine glasses in the kitchen. Neither of us took the framed skyline photo Daniel once insisted made the place feel personal. In the elevator down, Ethan stood beside me without speaking while soft jazz played through hidden speakers overhead. A couple entered on the 12th floor laughing about dinner reservations, and I had to look away because they reminded me of who Ethan and I used to be before secrecy became our shared language. Outside, the cold air hit hard. Ethan unlocked the truck, then paused with one hand on the door. "I am still meeting an attorney tomorrow." I nodded immediately. "I know. And I do not know what happens next." "I know that too." He studied me for a moment. "But I also know Daniel manipulated both of us differently." That sentence settled between us carefully, like something fragile neither of us trusted ourselves to carry yet. The drive home was quiet except for the heater blowing warm air against the windshield. About halfway back to Naperville, Ethan suddenly asked, "Did you ever love him?" I answered immediately because hesitation would have been another lie. No. Ethan kept his eyes on the road. "Then why did you trust him more than me?" I stared out at the dark highway lights streaking past the window. "Because he agreed with every selfish thing I wanted to believe about myself." Ethan absorbed that without reacting. A few miles later, he said something even quieter. "And I agreed with every comfortable thing I wanted to believe about our marriage." That was the moment I realized neither of us could fully blame the third person forever. Daniel had exploited cracks that already existed. He had not invented them from nothing. When we finally pulled into the driveway, the porch light was on. Ava had left it for us. Inside, the house smelled faintly like laundry detergent and the chicken soup Ethan made every winter. Such painfully ordinary details. Ava was asleep on the couch under a blanket, one of her textbooks open on her chest. Ethan stopped beside her and carefully moved the book to the coffee table without waking her. Then he covered her shoulders more fully with the blanket. I watched that tiny gesture from the hallway and felt grief rise so suddenly it almost folded me in half. Not because I had lost money. Not because Daniel betrayed me. Because I suddenly saw the entire life I nearly traded away while convincing myself I was only protecting my independence. Ethan noticed me crying before I realized tears had started falling. He did not come toward me immediately. After everything, that distance was fair. But he also did not walk away. We stood there in the dim living room with Ava sleeping between us like the last untouched thing in the house. Finally Ethan spoke. "I cannot promise this marriage survives." His honesty hurt less now because it was clean. No manipulation. No strategy. Just truth. "I know," I said softly. "But I am done hiding." Ethan looked at me for a long time after that. Then he nodded once and headed upstairs toward the guest room again. Halfway up the staircase, he stopped without turning around. "The weird thing," he said quietly, "is that losing the money would not have destroyed me." I held my breath. Ethan rested one hand on the banister. "Finding out you watched me struggle while staying silent," he continued, "that is the part one still do not know how to forgive." Then he disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone beside the glowing Christmas lights Ava had plugged into the wall earlier that evening. The same Christmas lights Ethan had been searching for in the garage when this entire life cracked open. I stood there for a long time staring at them reflected in the dark window. 18 months earlier, I thought inheriting millions meant I finally had power. In the end, the irony was almost unbearable. The money never actually changed my life. The secrecy did.